Hello, everybody. I am Yolanda Marie. I hope everybody is doing okay with the crazy energy as we understand it. All right. And we're just calling it that to be, a little lighthearted about it. It's not crazy energy and it's not really hurting us, but it can be uncomfortable, right? So listen, you got to keep a light heart about these things to keep your frequency high in the first place. And so the guides are saying what's happening with all this energy, because now listen, the 1212 portal actually opened before December the 12th. There's a fluidity to this energy. There's a fluidity to everything. Everything is in motion. So think motion, okay? And so it was already opening prior to that, and it's going to be, of course, open after that. And there is a vortex of energy that really occurs through to the solstice. Now, this is 12/21, December the 21st. So we're in this sort of portal or vortex, really, of very fast moving creative energy, very expansive energy. And this is what the guides are going to talk about, okay? So what's happening, and this is how the guides put it, you are bringing into yourself the components to bridge the gap between the self that might have been perhaps outcast, right? So this would be like the previous paradigm self, and it's going to vary for all of you exactly what this entails, but this is how the guides put it. They said the self that may have been outcast, unseen, or perhaps seen in an untrue way. You're bridging a gap between that self and the self who feels whole and complete. And the way they put it is the one who sees through those layered upon projections, what are now quickly dissipating outdated structures, because that's what's happening. They are very much shifting. And as they shift, the outdated elements of those structures, basically, they're being transmuted because nothing really leaves completely. It basically changes its energetic form, okay? It changes, in this case, the very substance of itself. It's being transmuted into something different. As that's happening, the planetary grid continues its shift. And so as new code streams in, there are these inevitable little microshifts occurring within the planetary grid, and as a result, also between individuals. Now, as long as there is any connectedness between humans, there will be this subtle movement between each other's field. So regardless of how, let's just use the word awake, right? There are varying degrees of what awake is. And when we're using this word, we're typically just referring to your awareness of energy on the planet, the shifts that are going on that cannot be tangibly seen necessarily, although we are seeing the effects of those shifts, like the after effect, right, in our physical experience. But we're not able, or all of us are not able to see the energy or feel what's going on. But a lot of us can. Many of you who are listening to this right now are very aware and are able to feel in some way with extra sensory perception of some sort, right? The entire planet is shifting. Okay, just know that there is a shift going on. To many, it's going to feel like a separating of worlds, like a separating, and that's okay too. There's not really a wrong answer here. It is just occurring. We're each living our individual experience from our own perspective anyway. And so it's best just not to exercise a lot of judgment on someone else's version of that experience, because you will become distracted, quite distracted. And your body and your field are doing a lot of work. Your mind, your heart, they're doing a lot of work. So very likely, if you're tuned into this, you don't have a lot of time for those sorts of distractions, right? So that wanted to be said. Wow, a lot of that came through that is not in the original message at all, you guys, okay? So if you felt like you didn't need to hear that, and then just carry on forward. But what the guides are saying is there are going to be these subtle shifts and this subtle movement between each other's field. And the way they put it is, ironically, and I'm quoting them, ironically, this is especially going to affect those ones who do not actually understand this connectedness, right? But despite the fact that they might not understand it, and they might even like rebuff it, and just publicly refuse to acknowledge any of it or go against it. All of that could be going on, right? But despite all of that, everyone actually is being affected regardless, but to what degree? So the guides are saying it's to a large degree that these people, even if they're publicly kind of, poo-pooing the idea of an awakening happening, they might not be shutting down their hearts completely. They're still loving to their families. They're still trying to reach for some sort of heart frequency, whether they realize it or not. They're being affected. And so these incidental shifts will indeed initiate numerous triggers and activations of their hearts. And remember, this is going to trickle down, so to speak. We're just using that phrase for a reference. So in other words, they are likely to have many around them who are also not completely shut down. Well, then you've got this cascade of hearts being triggered. So this will give you an interesting little window in, right, to almost like another world, because you're off, like picture yourself off in the distance here. And especially after this latest shift, many of you are completely off of that island of really putting your attention on people who aren't so close to you in frequency, or rather aligned with you. Let's say it that way, right? So this is a good little window into how it is that this can be an entire planetary shift. Like, how can it be, if someone is refusing to understand what's going on, how they can too be shifting? And this is what the guides are talking about, okay? Now, on the subject of those of you who are fast integrating and fast expanding, or those of you who have really been, let's call this a journey, right? Like been on this journey. When you are first awakening to the idea that you can hold these codes and receive all of this information, the mind is actually much more inclined to suspend beliefs, right? And calm mental processes that might otherwise interfere with the proper alignment of these energies. But now, for those of you who consciously hold a wealth of knowledge at this point already, you might actually find yourselves needing to empty the mind of any preconceived thoughts and ideas as you receive these incoming energies at this point. Now, they're not saying forget everything, okay? They're saying this doesn't mean that all of the previously learned information is going to become irrelevant. No, but it is necessary to truly allow this new information to take root in an unencumbered way. So they're just talking about finding zero point, perhaps through meditation, relaxation, and really just opening your mind. For many of you, you don't even need the meditation as much anymore. It's going to depend, but it's just setting an intention to allow this information to really take root where it needs to be. So they're saying what this will do is create a clean path for smooth integration and an easier release of outdated directives, protocols, or beliefs. Now, the Arcturians also have a message about this, the Stargates, the portals, the energy coming in. That's really beautiful, and it's very activating. If you want to read it, you can find it below. So the Arcturians are saying there are what you call Stargates, portals, and these portals usher in the higher frequencies. So that's what's happening now. Now, of course, many of you have activated Stargates within self, but they're saying we will hold that more specific information for another time. Now, what you must understand is that for many of you, these frequencies are finding their way to you, to meet you, to connect specifically with you. That's what you need to know. And so these frequencies are seeking to ground themselves through you. Okay, think about that for a minute. So, because what's happening is you stabilize and connect them not only with pockets of space on the planet, but also through the interwoven grid which connects all of you. So this is what the guides were talking about as well. And so you see, you are integral in the process, even as, and then they say, well, especially as you go about your normal daily routine and adventures. Your experiences, both remarkable and mundane, add a special spark to this connection through your conduit and into the field, an added flair, if you will, unique to only you. This unique flair of yours adds layers of vision, which is a result of many of your previous intergalactic lives. Now, in this vision, what they're talking about, it's about the inner workings of a healthy, unified society, balanced family structures. These structures, this unified society, these things that you've lived through before, these operate through a higher heart frequency, a higher heart consciousness, and it's rooted in abundance. Everyone should understand this. That's why the concept and the frequency of competition, of lack, all of these things are really incongruent with an expanded society, with where we're going. And so now I will quote the Arcturians here. This is what you are creating by your mere presence and your valiant decision to make the trip backwards for many of you into a land quite before your own time. For those times when you ask yourselves, shouldn't I be doing more? Remember this. We are the Arcturian Council. We love you. End transmission.